The Australian Indian Education Exchange is known for making strides towards a positive future by enabling Indian students to obtain an Australian education in India. Now, this promotes a greater cultural exchange and accessibility to high-quality education. Partnerships and online education have also increased access to Australian education for Indian students. And the collaboration between the Indian government and Australian universities is crucial in addressing infrastructure access and affordability challenges. Welcome to the third episode of Australian Government and Study Australia present Australian Edge for India's Century in partnership with Times Network. On this episode, we focus on delivering Australian education beyond borders in India. And to deliberate on this, we have with us Katrina Jackson, Chief Executive, Universities Australia, Ravneet Pahwa, she is the Global VP at Deakin University, and Ashish Sharma, Director, Trade and Investment South Asia, Australian Trade and Investment Commission. Thank you, ladies and sir, for joining me here today. Ravneet, let's start off with you. You know, Deakin University has made history by being the first Australian university to set up a branch campus in India. Can you talk to us about the significance of this achievement and the opportunities it presents for both Australia and India?
Yes, it is a momentous achievement in the Australia-India relationship, especially in the bilateral knowledge collaboration between our two countries. It is a testament of success of the intrinsic partnerships across academia, industry, and government that Deakin University has been forging in India for the last 3 decades. But this is a momentous occasion for us. Symbolic of achieving holistic understanding of the ever-dynamic evolution and needs of the Indian ecosystem. I think it's very important. Also, I think the Gift City initiative, one of its kind in India, is a very new pathway for foreign universities to work with India, in India, for India, which is what Deakin believes it is going to be doing through this partnership. It also makes accessible education, quality education possible in partnership with Indian providers, Indian industry, and Indian government. I think this achievement for both India and Australia is a true testimony of collaboration, bringing the industry from all over the world, academia, and showing a very deep understanding of what could be possible in this ever-changing education relationship. Harnessing potential for Australia to be a strategic knowledge and skills partner to India for a digital economy is absolutely critical and crucial to this partnership. Opening up of new age delivery models is important, and this particular campus that we are setting up will be one very strong partnership model that could work in India. Exploring new channels and a win-win situation for Indian students, working with industry. We have companies like TCS, Infosys, Xavier, HSBC, and HCL as partners to deliver the 2 unique programs that we are going to start with, which is cybersecurity and business analytics at the master's level. I think this is going to be a game changer, and I think this is going to give a good testament of a very strong existing Australia-India relationship looking into the future.
Katrina, coming to you next, what are the various other models to bring world-class Australian education to India? Does this make international education more accessible? And what do these models mean for all the stakeholders involved?
The fantastic thing about the collaboration between the Indian people and the Australian people is we both understand the power of education deep in our guts. We understand the power of education to raise people at a disadvantage, but also to propel growth and to propel growth sustainably. So this is a fantastic partnership. Deakin has absolutely forged the way, and that 3 decades-long partnership between Deakin and India has paved the way for all sorts of other institutions, but really set the standard. We're really pleased to see another one of our great world-class universities, the University of Wollongong, has been approved this week also to have a presence in Gift City, and very much looking forward to how that develops. I understand their offerings will be fintech, computer science to begin with, but also there are joint degrees. There was a joint degree announced last time we were in India just months ago. Melbourne University Science, I remember meeting those fantastic young Indian, in many cases women, I'd say girls, who are all just raring to go for those dual science degrees. There's also research collaborations. We mustn't forget there are already 450 existing partnerships in incredibly important areas. Very sophisticated, some recent grants under the Austrade India grant scheme include things like really sophisticated solar sensing to work out water quality issues. Really important stuff for both countries. It's just absolutely all power. We're seeing the relationship grow and improve day by day. We're seeing in so much vigour, so much potential. We look with green with envy at the growth rates in India. We also look with incredible, we're very impressed by your extraordinary ambitions to educate 500 million students by 2035. And we're doing everything we can to make sure that happens. As I said, we both understand fundamentally the power of education and working together to do whatever we can to service your ambitions and ours just makes us both stronger and stronger together in the region.
I think the national education policy does open a lot of doors for collaboration with Indian providers. I think it's a very exciting time for India, and I think Australia is a true partner to taking this very strong possibility of upskilling and educating a large number of Indians in India and in Australia and in a hybrid manner.
Amit, if I can add to that, you also spoke about the benefits for different stakeholders involved. You are really driving the cost down of an international program here in India. The students can look at spending few years in their home country, in the home institution, and then they may move to an Australian university to finish off their courses as well. Talking about the institutions, when they partner with Australian institutions, it definitely adds to their brand value. But I think that there is a spillover effect where you increase the quality of the research and teaching in the Indian institution as well. The industry gets the accessibility of high quality talent. And that's what the finance minister, Ms. Sitaraman said when she kind of launched the Gift City initiative in her speech in, during budget 2021 as well. She said that this will facilitate availability of high and human resources for the Indian economy. And that is exactly, I think, where we are working in.
Ashish, moving along, your thoughts on how can Australian universities work with the Indian government to address the challenges of infrastructure, access and affordability in the delivery of education?
Thanks. So before I come to the challenges, I want to talk about the aspirations in this country. Now, we all have heard India's story for the last 8 to 10 odd years. It is a truly transformational story where the social structure, economics and, good politics and good governance are kind of working together. We are looking at somewhere around 1 billion odd people who are below the age of 35. We have a very large populace which is just ready to make a dent in the industry, academia, or other sectors as well. So the aspirations of people in this country are no less than aspirations of people in New York, London, Singapore. I think that what we need to deliver in this country is democratize education, and that to be, bringing in the international courses and making sure that we are not just focusing on the top 7 cities of India, but going to tier 2, 3, and 4 cities as well. India also is turning itself into a global study destination. We have been hearing for nearly 15 odd years that there are only 1% of globally mobile international students who land in India. So how we can expand that from 1% to maybe 5 or 10% in the next 15 odd years. And that's where, a lot of work needs to be done on quality, and making sure that we are democratizing. It's just not a few institutions, but across the country as well. Talking about the challenges, the first is infrastructure. So if we have to deliver something here, the first thing which we would need is land. So do we have the state governments who are open to have a conversation with us? Do we have access to the land? And what are the incentives being given to the foreign providers to access that land as well? Once we'll bring in the institution in a particular state or part of the country, it is definitely going to have a spillover effect on other local institutions as well, because there will be cross-collaboration. We'll be talking about research, and then we can talk about cross-teaching as well. The second big thing which you spoke about is access. I think in the last 6 odd years, India has done a great job in EdTech sector. This sector has really expanded the reach of the institutions or the teachers to, every single corner of this country as well. The last thing is the affordability. So if we are working on economies of scale, and that's where I'll kind of stack up all of my arguments. So you bring all the students who are not in the bigger cities, but in the smaller cities and towns and villages of India as well. You kind of, deliver them education at scale. So that will bring the cost of delivery of education and the price for the students overall down as well. The next thing could be teacher training, because we have a very large pool of teachers in this country. But are they looking at what the skills of the future are going to be? Are we really training them there? And what we can do are to bring teacher training programs and world-class curriculum from Australia to India.
As we get into wrapping up this panel, I'd like to come to all the three panelists, starting with Katrina. In your opinion, what unique challenges and opportunities exist for Australian universities in delivering education in India?
Australia's been on a journey of democratising our higher education system for the last 50, 60 years here. We now have 40% attainment among our young people of university degrees. We're good at distance, we're good at connecting people, we're good at hybrid models, and we're working hard to get better at it, but have so much to learn from India. I think, frankly, challenge, really, one person's challenge is another person's opportunity. I think the opportunities in Gift City, the simplification of all the regulations have made it possible and have been very generously received by Australian universities. So we've got a real opportunity on the ground to get moving. And if there are challenges, I feel absolutely confident with a level of connection and commitment from both sides at the absolutely highest levels, we'll deal with those challenges in a way that is both advantageous for India and advantageous for Australia.
Fantastic. Ravneet, if I could get you in with your thoughts.
I think access to Australian education platforms and understanding, what the framework of Australian education is and how that fits into the Australian framework and how Indian fits into the Australian. So I think there we have qualification recognition work happening, and I think that's really, really important. I think the bureaucracy and the regulatory environment in both countries can be simplified so that, businesses can happen, education institutions can work together. So I think these are some of the challenges. But when I see the opportunities, I feel the socio-cultural similarities between our two countries, the friendly and cordial bilateral relations that Katrina mentioned. I think Australia being a flavored destination for Indian students anyway, but I think also Australian institutions really focusing on India and wanting to work with India, I think is a really strong step.
Great, lovely. Ashish, coming to you as we wrap up this part of the conversation, your thoughts on the same question.
Thanks, Sumit. I think Katrina and Ravneet have already touched upon that, but let me take you to the regional view. We have received a big streak of success in Sri Lanka. We have gone from just 10 odd transnational education partnerships to about 31 last year. We have seen those models working very well, and we made sure that we keep on bringing international courses and those opportunities to the students in Sri Lanka. Then from Sri Lanka, I'll go to Bangladesh as well, because in 2014, Bangladesh has passed Private Universities Act. And as it would happen with any emerging market, from passing of the act to really executing the strategy, it took us nearly 5 to 6 odd years. But as soon as we had the first partnership through, we have seen just 4 or 5 partnerships over the line in the last 1 odd year as well. And that is something which we think we can do in India. While we are looking at India as a market, we should not forget the diversity of demand which is existing in different states, pockets, cities, or just the aspiration of the students as well. And we need to make sure that we are providing them access and high quality education to make sure that their aspirations are met. Where we are talking about the opportunities, although we can talk about a lot on ideation to delivery and all that stuff, but let me leave you with last comment that we can deliver things at lesser cost when we are looking at scale, and we can help the Indian students to access global opportunities and access global networks, because we think that in the next 25 odd years, the students who are today, they're going to be the business leaders for tomorrow, and they'll be having global careers. They are not going to just operate in their in their neighborhood, but they are going to operate at the national scale first and then the international scale as well. And that is exactly where we want to create the value.
Spot on, Ashish, because the aim is that no country, no city, no organization is just local anymore. It's all global. So it's great that future global leaders would be getting these inputs from an earlier stage. Well, that's all on this part of the discussion on Australian government and Study Australia present Australian Edge for India's Century in partnership with Times Network. But the conversation continues on the other side. Till then, thank you so much, Ashish. Thank you, Katrina, and thank you, Ravneet, for being here. To our viewers, it's time for a very short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Australian Government and Study Australia present Australian Edge for India's Century in partnership with Times Network. In this segment, we'll highlight how public-private partnerships can drive growth and innovation in the EdTech and skilling sectors. And for the conversation, we have with us Sally Curtin. She's the CEO at Bendigo Kangan Institute. We have Dr. Swati Majumdar, the Pro-Chancellor at Symbiosis Skills Universities. And we have Leo Bremenis. He's the Trade and Investment Commissioner, South Asia with Australian Trade and Investment Commission. Ladies, sir, thank you so much for joining me here today. Leo, if we can start with you, can you discuss some of the key trends and innovations that are driving the EdTech and skilling sectors in India and Australia, and how providers and industry can work together to create more opportunities for upskilling and reskilling?
Sure. Thank you, Sumit, and it's a pleasure to be here. So starting on the trend, that is India's huge growth as it comes into turning 100 years old at the middle of this century. And that growth is centred on its workforce. It's predicted that by the middle of the century, 25% of the global workforce will be coming from India. And by 2047, so exactly on 100 years, India's workforce will be 1.5 times the size of the entire population of Europe. So there is huge trajectory in what India is looking at, and that's being reflected in India's skilling policies across the national education policy that commits to 50% of tertiary and secondary students having touch points with vocational education, the University Grants Commission, the Sector Skill Council, and a number of other areas where India is really pushing towards enhancing its workforce and taking charge of this growth. The innovation now I'd like to speak about is Australian vocational education and training. It is world-class, and what makes it different and innovative is that it's designed for industry, by industry. The innovation that differentiates us in vocational is units of competency. So they're the building blocks of the training that we provide. And what they mean is that students have to take their learnings to the workforce and show hands-on experience to get credits. And they're graded on their competency in different units. And that means that they're deployable in the workforce and that they're ready to work. So we can see there's a big link between the trend and the innovation between Australia and India. And to tie that all together, I know part of this panel is on EdTech, but that is a bridge for us. So in EdTech itself, that is a way that Indian workforce and learners can access Australian training. So to give one example, Deakin, we know, has partnered with Upgrad to launch an MBA, a Master of Business Administration. And what that means is that Indian learners can access the full Australian course, the full qualification, without leaving India and without being away from their families as well. So that's one of many ways we can work together and one of the many ways that we can partner.
Great. Thank you so much, Leo, for those important insights to this discussion. Sally, if I can bring you in now, how can public-private partnerships help to drive growth and innovation in the EdTech and skilling sectors?
Thank you for having me. I've actually just returned from a skills delegation to India last month. A couple of the examples I have first-hand experience with is VETASES. So VETASES is Australia's largest assessment organisation and has been working with the Skills Ministry in India and also the National Skills Development Corporation to build the capacity of the vocational education sector. Also, VETASES recently signed an MOU with the Confederation of Indian Industries, where we're working now to assess people for their readiness to work in industry. So they're two examples for VETASES. Our own institute was one of the first to sign a joint venture with Maruti Suzuki and the government of Gujarat, where they created the International Automotive Centre of Excellence. And that's effectively built off this centre I'm joining you from today. I've got our new electric vehicle lab behind us. It was about 10 years ago that Maruchi Suzuki came out to Australia, saw what best practice vocational education looked like in automotive and said, we want one of these in India, and went about the long-term task of creating a new centre. And as part of that innovation and partnership with us, they've been able to design their centre based on a model that works very well here in Australia. It's always of mutual benefit when there's great partnerships.
Swati, in your view, what role should government policies and initiatives play in promoting collaboration between India and Australia in the edtech and skilling sectors? And how can we ensure that these policies are effective in driving growth and innovation?
Personally, I feel that since the pandemic, the way of doing business has changed in India and all over the world. And just as much as students, even working professionals need to learn the new way of doing business. And there is a huge opportunity for upskilling because each one of us needs to update ourselves with the latest technology, with the global trends, and what are the new things that are happening in the market. Having said that, I feel that the government needs to come out with more proactive and conducive policies so that industry and academia can work together to understand the requirements of these changing trends, number one. Number two is also be able to update the curricula and the syllabus so that what is delivered in the form of skilling through technology, through EdTech, is relevant to the latest job roles and the requirements of skills and competencies in the industry.
And it's great that you pointed out about the government, because yes, it's so much required, this government support to help this large working population in India that Leo spoke about at the start, to help that population do the best that they can. Leo, coming back to you, how can Australian providers leverage their expertise in the edtech and skilling sectors to create new opportunities for collaboration and growth in India? And what are some of the challenges that they may face in doing so?
Here at Austrade, we need to support providers by being industry-led, and that's the best way to look at it. And that's everything from that tangible hands-on experience, but it's also looking at what the career pathway is. And I'd commend Symbiosis on the, how many students of theirs go straight into employment after their learning. To this end, we've identified some key sectors for Australian providers to look at as well to create opportunity and to partner with India. So that ranges from future health, future tech, future manufacturing, logistics, energy and resources, and executive education as well. One challenge you asked about that is, I think, navigating India as a market. As per some of my stats earlier, it's a huge, huge country. There are many different market entry pathways for education delivery, EdTech being one of them, of course, and plenty of different partners to look at. So I'd like to emphasise one program that the Australian Trade and Investment Commission is leading, which is the Australia India Future Skills Initiative. So what we're trying to look at is we're supporting Australian providers in the vocational and dual sector university space to partner up with India. And a big part of that is looking at different market entry pathways, exploring collaborations like with Symbiosis to find the best way to triangulate our supply, India's demand, and industry drivers as well.
Great, that's great to know, Leo. But as we wrap up this conversation, I'd like to come back to Dr. Swati Majumdar. What impact do you think these collaborative partnerships will have on the future of education and employment in India and Australia? And how can we ensure that they continue to drive growth and innovation in these critical sectors?
Yes, I think the impact is going to be very positive. Number one, I feel that the Indian students will be able to get the best of best in the area of vocational education and skilling through the collaborations with the Australian agencies and colleges and universities. The second point I feel is a lot of the international certifications, which Leo and me also spoke about last time. I think they bring a great value addition to the Indian students who can just by sitting in India be able to get internationally recognized certification, which will open up a global market for them to seek jobs not only in India but elsewhere as well. You also mentioned a point about innovation. And I feel that skilling has a very important role to play in innovation. I have personally seen it in the Symbiosis Skills universities, and I'm sure my colleagues, the panel will agree, that when students actually work on industry problem statements, when students do things with their own hands through experiential learning, they often come out with ideas which are very innovative, where they can actually start their own businesses. And I feel this is another area where the Australian collaborations will certainly help with the design thinking, with the innovative thinking, and bring in a fresh breath of air for our students to start many businesses from the campuses of the Indian universities and truly contribute to the Make in India vision of our Honorable Prime Minister.
Very important point there that you've made, and it is true that about the impact that the skilling and technology in this with edtech institutions helping promote skilling, because yes, skilling is so very important. Well, that's all the time that we have for this discussion. Thank you so much, Dr. Swati Majumdar. Thank you, Sally, and thank you, Leo, for coming in and sharing your thoughts on this special episode of Australian Government and Study Australia present Australian Edge for India's Century in partnership with Times Network. For our viewers, thank you so much for watching, but do tune in for our next episode on the series. Thank you so much for watching.